2 a.m., September 14th, 1814. The War of 1812 between the United States and the United Kingdom has stretched into its third year. 8 miles below Baltimore, American lawyer Francis Scott Key watches, detained aboard a truce boat, the Minden, as the British unleash a terrifying barrage of mortar shells and glaring red Congreve rockets over Fort McHenry at the mouth of Baltimore Harbor. A chilling cheer rises in the distance, followed by the sound of fire from Fort Covington to the west. Then Fort McHenry, too, opens the full force of her batteries. The heavens aglow were a seething sea of flame, Key would later write, and the waters of the harbor lashed into an angry sea by vibrations. The Minden rode and tossed as though in a tempest. Finally, after an hour of pandemonium, death-like stillness. What did it mean? Had the British been repulsed? Or was Baltimore to be set to the torch as Washington had been? Did Fort McHenry even now lie in the hands of the enemy? Through the rain and the smoke, Key can no longer see the American flag flying over the fort. "We are ready, except that we have no suitable ensign to display over the Star Fort," wrote Major George Armistead upon his arrival at Fort McHenry in June of 1813. "It is my desire to have a flag so large that the British will have no difficulty seeing it from a distance." Accordingly, that summer, Armistead commissioned a second-generation flag maker named Mary Young Pickersgill to create a 30 by 42-foot flag to hoist over the star-shaped fort. Pickersgill, fittingly born alongside her young nation in Philadelphia in 1776, promptly set to work on a flag of wool bunting emblazoned by 15 white cotton stars, each one a whopping 2 feet wide from point to point. When the flag grew too large to lay out in the Pickersgill house, Mary moved production to nearby Claggett's brewery. Working by candlelight, she and her helpers, including her 13-year-old daughter Caroline, completed the flag in just 6 weeks and delivered it to Armistead on August 19th. Incidentally, in 1813, the flag of the United States featured 15 stars and 15 stripes, though there were then 18 states in the Union. Congress would later pass the Flag Act of 1818, which standardized the number of stripes on the flag at 13 and mandated that the flag include 1 star for each state, with new stars to be added on the 4th of July following a new state's admission to the Union. A year to the day after Mary Pickersgill delivered her flag to Major Armistead, the British landed 4,000 troops under General Robert Ross on the upper Patuxent River southeast of Washington, D.C. On August 22nd, en route to the American capital, Ross and Rear Admiral George Cockburn established temporary headquarters in Upper Marlborough, Maryland, in the home of an elderly doctor named William Beans. In Beans, they found a hospitable gentleman who, as a descendant of Scottish immigrants, spoke with a familiar Scottish accent. 2 days later, Ross's men entered Washington and burned both the Capitol and the White House. On their way back to the Patuxent, 6 British stragglers began looting near Beans's home. The doctor, in fact a bona fide American, helped arrest the stragglers as prisoners of war. Upon learning of it, an indignant General Ross sent a mounted detachment to arrest Beans. Indeed, if Beans proved to be a British subject, as Ross suspected, the doctor was now guilty of treason. In August of 1814, Francis Scott Key was a largely unknown Washington lawyer with a fondness for writing poetry. He would soon become a household name. With Dr. Beans imprisoned aboard the HMS Tonnant, one of his patients, who happened to be married to Francis Scott Key's sister, approached Key for assistance. Accordingly, the poet-lawyer received authority from President Madison to negotiate for Beans's release. Shrewdly, Key also obtained letters from wounded British soldiers, praising the medical treatment they were receiving from American doctors. Key himself had met these men on the battlefield, having served as a volunteer aide during the failed defense of Washington. Thus armed, he and a prisoner exchange officer named John Skinner sailed for the Tonnant under a flag of truce. Moved by the letters, General Ross agreed to release Dr. Beans, yet he could not risk the Americans informing their army of the British plan to attack Baltimore. So, fatefully, he resolved to keep Key and his companions under guard aboard their truce boat until after the invasion. In the early hours of September 12th, the British landed 4,000 men at North Point at the mouth of the Patapsco River east of Baltimore. Later that same day, General Ross encountered a line of Americans in the woods around a sudden turn in the road. He was subsequently shot in the breast through his right arm. As was his custom, he had been riding at the head of his troops, who were alerted to his death by the sight of his horse dashing past with an empty saddle. Earlier that year, upon leaving home, General Ross had promised his wife Elizabeth that the American campaign would be his last. She would be given the small consolation of a new family name bestowed upon her by the Prince Regent, Ross of Bladensburg, after the battle her husband had won on his way to Washington. The next morning, September 13, the British began their now famous bombardment of Fort McHenry, during which they fired 700 rockets with their red glare and 1,500 bombs bursting in air. Sometime after midnight, as recorded by Francis Scott Key and narrated in my opening, the British attempted to land 1,200 troops west of the fort, only to be turned back by the guns of Fort Covington, with Fort McHenry pouring in fire upon the British retreat. That same morning, Colonel Arthur Brooke, now in command of the British land assault, turned his men back for the Chesapeake, determining that, with the Navy held up at Fort McHenry, Baltimore could not be captured without his force suffering heavy losses. Due to the rain, Mary Pickersgill's flag had been replaced by a smaller, less valuable storm flag. So it was that with the arrival of dawn and the assurance that the British assault had indeed been repulsed, Armistead's men once again hoisted the massive Star-Spangled banner over Fort McHenry. It is said that aboard the Minden, the nearsighted Dr. Beans asked Francis Scott Key the fateful question, "Can you see the flag?" To which Key responded, of course, that he could. Inspired, he began scribbling a poem on the back of a letter. Impressed by Key's poem, another of his brother-in-laws, Joseph H. Nicholson, arranged to have it printed and distributed in handbill form under the appropriate, if somewhat uninspired title, Defense of Fort McHenry. A week later, the Star-Spangled Banner was published in the Baltimore Patriot. Before long, it had been publicly performed to the tune of a British drinking song named To Anacreon in Heaven. That song and its various parodies were already popular in American taverns at the time. Given how well Key's lyrics fit the melody, it seems likely that he had the tune in mind when he composed his poem. The Star-Spangled Banner, of course, would shortly far exceed the original in popularity. In 1889, it was adopted as the official song of the US Navy. 13 years later, Giacomo Puccini used it to introduce an American character in the opera Madama Butterfly. It was not, however, until 1931 that it became the official national anthem of the United States. As it happened, the law designating it so faced some opposition due to the song's previous association with drinking. This was during Prohibition, after all, as well as due to its foreign origins and difficult singing range. Would God Bless America, America the Beautiful, or maybe another song make a better national anthem? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It has been said that the night Fort McHenry stood up to British guns was the night the United States became a nation. Indeed, America emerged from the War of 1812 with a heightened sense of national pride. For more on the war and its legacy, check out this video. And if you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, this is Bigfoot saying so long and save me a seat at your next campfire.